Hey guys, Suck It here, and today we're going to be talking all about... Right, do that again. Fuck's sake.
Reset.
That came out of nowhere.
Edit it.
It's fine. Hey guys, Suck It here, and today we're going to talk all about... Look, right? Just because...
I didn't...
That was fucking right. Can I just say it's a lot more fun when I'm trying to record a video and people interrupt with like Amazon Primes, because that's like worth something, you know? When it's people being funny with the claps, it's like, okay. Anyway. Hey guys, Suck It here, and today we're joined by Noogie, Rise, and Octavian, and we're going to talk all about Blight. But before we get into that, next week we're going to be joined by 2 GGG developers. So if you've got any questions after this podcast about Blight in general, send that to us and we can send it to the devs. But before we get into Blight, what's everyone been up to? Rise, what have you been doing?
Waiting for Classic WoW and Blight. Kind of. But mostly Classic WoW right now, since Blight is pretty far away. Other than that, man, I'm chilling on Dota. I'm playing some Shock Nova. That's it. Well, I guess not anymore, because I was reading chat for a really long, there was a really long pasta, and I was just reading it during a race course fight, and I just kind of offed myself.
Oh, no.
I was literally looking at chat for like 15 seconds straight. Oh yeah. But that was pretty much like when am I switching to Dota? And yeah, here we are. But Blight announcement looks cool.
Question, Rise. How long did it take you to figure out you died?
It was a couple seconds. I have this thing where like I have my chat on the left side, so it's always easier to see my health bar. You know, I know some streamers have it on the right side, and that's a big no-no.
Can you guess what side I have it on, Rise?
Yeah, you have it on the right side for sure. Yeah. You play like you have it on the right side. I get that.
What have you been up to, Niggy?
Same as Rise, honestly. Like waiting for Classic, and then waiting for Blight as well. But I think I'm in the same boat that I can't really. 2 weeks out is still a long way out in my book. I can't really get excited until we're like less than a week. So I'll probably get there. And then just, I don't know, playing tons of different games.
I think it's a bit different with Legion and with every like expansion we've ever had with PoE. It's like you're excited for the trailer, and then you're like, well, now I'm excited for the Ascendancy stuff, which I'll find out in like a week or two. You know what I mean? You're like, yay! Yeah. And now you're like, give me more. So you just gotta like play the waiting game.
Yeah, can't really act on the excitement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've been seeing you crushing it in TFT though, as far as your streams go. I've caught like 1 or 2, but I've just noticed by your titles that your rank has been climbing slowly.
Well, I got to Challenger in 10 days. So I was pretty, like, after picking up the game to when I hit Challenger, it took me 10 days or something like that. So I was pretty proud of that. Then I had one stream where I fell all the way down to Diamond 4 in 8 hours. So that was interesting. So
wasn't that like a 30-hour stream also?
Oh yeah, because then I was like, I wanted to revert the tilt, so I just kept going.
Oh, that always works.
Oh yeah, I did fall further, and I actually got a lot better through that stream because like I untilted myself. I was just too tired to then also play well.
Yeah.
So that was okay.
So you thought, I've been losing ranks for the last 18 hours. 12 more hours.
No, just 8.
Oh, sorry.
So I went for another 20.
Okay. What about you, Octavian? Have you lost 28 hours of ranks recently?
No, I haven't been playing any ranked in any games though, so I haven't had the opportunity. I'm doing a lot of real life stuff, taking the opportunity for the downtime of the league to stream a little less. I'll be moving into a new place in a little more than a week, actually, so I've been kind of taking care of that. And just slowly getting 40-40 challenges done to finish out the league. I'm at 39 right now, and 3 out of 4 end game grinds, so basically done.
Is that something you usually go for, or?
No, it's just that Legion didn't have a lot of other compelling end games, so if I wanted something to do while still being in the league, that was something to do, so went for that.
That's fair. Before we get into Blight then, since you mentioned it, should we just talk about like our closing thoughts on Legion, since that's also going into like the core game?
Sure.
True.
I think that Legion is it felt to me like they took a mechanic from, I don't know, 2-3 years ago and added a lot of bells and whistles onto it and put it into a map. And it doesn't have a lot of the meta stuff that we'd come to expect surrounding it, but that makes a lot of sense because I think GGG was experimenting with taking a step back in their design and seeing what the player and community reaction to that was. And I really hope going into Blight League we have a nice middle ground between something that's like incredibly obscure, dense, and in depth like Synthesis, or maybe Bestiary in its prime, and something like Legion, which is just visceral, kill monsters in a map level of fun. Because I gotta admit, Legion did lose its luster for me quicker than a lot of other leagues because there just wasn't as much to explore.
That was pretty much the best description of Legion for me that anybody could have thought of. Except from the looks of it so far, to me, Blight kind of seems more like not 2 leagues back, but like more like 5 leagues back, which is definitely not a bad thing from my perspective. But it doesn't seem like it's gonna be it seems like it's going to be anyway, primarily like gameplay focused, and then not a whole lot of other stuff going on, which I kind of like that. Although I wish there was more bossing stuff, with something like that.
What about you, Nigga?
I think Legion pretty much. I got like 2-3 weeks in, I got like an incursion vibe from it, and it pretty much held true. Like at least for me, for the next weeks to come. Right, that was like a really cool, engaging league mechanic. Like when you play it, but there's like a limit to how long it can like, I don't know, fulfill you as a player. At least for me, there was with like not too much depth to it and just like killing things repeatedly, and the boss fight. I think the main thing for me was just like there wasn't like a boss fight I was like pushing towards. There wasn't like a Chayula or anything like that. I know the 5-way is supposed to be that, but it didn't play that nicely for me. The whole like the end game fights, at least.
And I think part of the problem with the 5-way is they could have made it way more dangerous. Like the bosses in there had like metric fuckloads of health. They were brick and mortar and steel constructed. But they weren't really very dangerous. I brought in, over the course of the league, I think I did it with like 4 or 5 characters with varying degrees of survivability and stuff, like from max block all the way down to like 6k life with a bit of dodge, and that's it. And none of them felt threatened at any point. It's just some of them didn't have good clear or good single target, so I failed because of that. But that's a really anticlimactic way to fail.
I'm pretty sure I've said this on Bayclass before, but the thing which I find interesting about this is when I was talking to Bex before Legion, and she always does this thing before League is announced. She gives me her coy kind of like what she thinks will kind of be. And she was saying she was incredibly confident in Legion mechanically. And she was like, players will enjoy this. The one thing that we're worried about from the team's point of view is, will this be another incursion where players love it, but it doesn't like keep them held in and grounded? So I found that kind of interesting, since that's what you were sort of saying, but also that they were like aware of it as well. But before we get into Blight stuff though, the teaser line she gave me for Blight, which is why I had no idea what was going on, was her just saying, at its core, this is one of our most experimental leagues, and that's all she gave me. So going into the trailer, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck this could be.
Or going into Blight?
Yeah. I was just like, because I had that and I'm like, oh, so if I was to try and use that line to guess what 3.8 is, that could be anything, But I don't know. What was your guys' first reactions to watching the trailer the first time?
Kind of like long time coming. I don't know.
Really?
I felt like it was an eventuality. Like a lot of people would mention, like that eventually PoE will make a tower defense. Yeah, so far it's been pretty much exactly what a tower defense you would expect out of a tower defense. If you even like slow down some of the videos, there's like flying mobs. Because through the trailer, I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's flying mobs and just normal ground mobs and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, if you hover over it, it actually says like can attack flying, can't attack flying, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, pretty neat.
Maybe it's just because I don't play them like very often, if at all. But I did not see this coming. Tower defense was not something I expected being rolled into Path of Exile anytime soon. But I'm willing to give it a try. That's for sure.
There was that Van Helsing game a long time ago who had a tower defense mini game,
Yeah, I
and they
remember that.
eventually made it into like an entire game out of that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. And
Oh.
they got pretty good reviews. I think Ziggy has some reviews of it, even if you
Okay.
guys want to check it out on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Looked nice. Yeah. Thought the system worked pretty well. Although, yeah, it wasn't like inside of a map. It was like, it seemed like just generated maps by the developers,
Mhm.
you know, and how it worked out. But I think the randomized aspect of how these maps are going to work should be fine. Although I have no idea how it's going to work. Like you're inside of a sewer, time to do tower defense. Maybe you can only spawn. They're going to do
Yeah.
like separate rooms, kind of like synthesis. Not synthesis. Betrayal. They're just going to do separate rooms for them, and it's going to be like a big square
Oh.
where it can like unravel better. Yeah.
It does seem like it could be potentially pretty impacted by the map you choose to run and the layout. But I mean, Legion was really impacted by that, so they're not one to shy away from that sort of mechanic. Legion was way better in something like Dunes or Glacier than it was in like I don't know, Villa.
Yeah.
What was
It was bad even in small instances.
Oh,
like
it
in the
was
case of
straight up
Legion.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird kind of how they didn't
the same now.
take that into account.
Well, I remember in the dev episode we did talking to them before Legion, they said that they were planning on balancing the density to take into account more open maps versus enclosed ones. And you can definitely see that, like a Glacier Legion, the monsters are more spread out, but you just have access to all of them, and that more than overcompensates. Basically, they just didn't take it into account enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the density would have made sense if Cyclone was level 1 Cyclone and not end game mapping Cyclone. You know what I mean?
It's also like it's really hard to appropriately take that into account because of the disparity of power between builds in Path of Exile. Like if you balanced a Glacier Legion so that it was as rewarding as a Toxic Sewer Legion for an Essence Drain Contagion build that's min-maxed, then the Glacier Legion is going to have like monsters every 10 feet from each other in order to actually be okay. But for any build that isn't doing that level of clear, it's going to feel like trash. So I don't know. It's kind of an intractable problem.
What about you, Niggy? What was your first reaction to the trailer?
I think my first reaction was, huh.
Same.
Yeah, that was literally my reaction because I don't know. I think normally I get pretty excited. I'm just gonna be brutally honest here. I normally get pretty excited with seeing a new mechanic and like thinking what I can do with it. I didn't this time. I gotta say I didn't get excited. Then I started hearing about all the other improvements they're making. I was like, yeah, that sounds nice, right? Like the skill bars, we're getting an easier access to all the other stuff. But like the league mechanic itself, I've played many hours of tower defense, and it's never been the reason why I booted up. Like that experience was never the reason why I booted up PoE. So I look at it and I'm like, could be fun, but it doesn't excite me as an addition to PoE. As like an alternate game mode, sure. I mean, I've played tons of custom games in the past, but yeah, I mean, it's I'll let the league speak for itself before judging it, because I mean, they do good content, so we'll see.
You said you played a lot of like tower defense games.
Oh yeah.
I would never play the tower defense ones that didn't have heroes in it, where you would only build towers.
Really?
But the ones that you would have heroes in, like Enfos and stuff, I would love those. So that's why it like makes more sense for me.
Mm.
And yeah, I also think that it's PoE. Like at the end of the day, I think people are just gonna slap on a headhunter and just kind of ignore the towers and still do the thing, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, even if GGG works to try and prevent that, I think that's what's going to happen because GGG is not
Of course.
very good at estimating the upper bound of character strength. They thought we wouldn't get past Delve 1000, things like that. I'm sure if they compensate by giving the monsters health, players will still be able to overcome that. I don't know. I think part of, for me, my lukewarm response to the mechanic, just judging it at first glance, is that we have no frame of reference for a lot of what's going to be happening. Like I have no idea what the different towers are, what the towers are going to do. And if we're looking at something like Legion, for instance, it's pretty easy to tell, to extrapolate like what Legion monsters are going to do and how I'm going to deal with them. And I know what putting my character in a map and killing enemy monsters